now tuned in to the cold, hard truth. Cayman's #1 hard-hitting live podcast show, where we feature some straightforward conversations on political, social, and celebrity news and all things happening in the Cayman Islands and around the world. This show was created to give the people a voice and a means of being involved and informed without any filters. Sometimes it gets crazy, but we always keep it real. We bring you the tea, piping hot, so grab your favorite beverage and join the conversation via WhatsApp at 324-1612. Email tips at CaymanMarlRoad.com. Now, here's your host, Sandy Hill, broadcasting live from the beautiful Cayman Islands.
With all your paints on it now.
Yeah. A.L. Thompson too will put you into their system.
Yes,
I know.
I do want to shout out Cayman Coating this morning because I was absolutely shocked when I went there on Saturday, and the guy said, "I said, how much is that going to be? Because I know the drill. I got to go out to the ATM and get cash.
Yeah, it's a cash
and come back.
Yeah. Do they have a card machine now?
Cayman Coating.
No, they don't.
Now takes credit cards.
That has changed life.
Now takes credit cards.
That has changed my life when it comes to painting. Because I was like, how much cash do I need to bring? And
I said, guys,
there we go.
Yeah. So
I know.
I mean, it was like, what took you so long?
Yeah.
But
well,
anyway.
Yeah, no. Year 2022. This is our year.
All right. Close enough. All right. 7:24 right now.
Big news. I have some important news for you.
Interesting news.
It's Blake and Darren's Spilling the Tea with Sandy.
Cayman's top news headlines of the day from CMR.
Happy Monday, Sandy.
Hello.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday.
All right. What do you got for us on a Monday morning?
Yes, we have some breaking news just came out this morning. I'm still trying to read the judgment, but the Privy Council has returned a decision in the same-sex marriage.
Okay.
Situation. It's literally hot off the press. And it looks like they have taken the government's position on this one and rule that no same-sex marriage.
Wow.
Seriously.
Yeah. So I'm still looking at the judgment. The one that we received is for the Cayman Islands, and it is 26 pages. I'm just trying to see if I can quickly look at the summary here. But yes, it looks like pretty much when it's all said and done.
That sends a terrible message to the young folks out there who are struggling.
So the appeal the conclusion at number 60. For the reasons set out above, the board will humbly advise Her Majesty that the appeal should be dismissed.
Wow.
So.
And is there any avenue after this?
Well, it just says that the board takes this opportunity to reiterate that the point made by the Court of Appeal that the interpretation to be given to the Bill of Rights, as explained in this judgment, does not prevent the Legislative Assembly from introducing legislation to recognize same-sex marriage. The effect of the interpretation endorsed by the board is that this is a matter for the choice of the Legislative Assembly rather than a right laid down in the Constitution.
Shouldn't it be a referendum?
So I think it will be, we've already gotten the civil partnership position, and I think that's what it will be.
Which I think, I wouldn't mind having a civil partnership with my husband rather than a traditional marriage. So, as long as.
Yeah, I mean, I think the bottom line
it's still not equal rights.
Is the recognition of the rights, right? So, your ability to, in practical terms, do things like insurance and adoption, all these other things, and the civil partnership does give you those rights. So everything now has civil partnership on it anyway. Like, I was just filling out a passport form the other day, and it was the same thing, civil partnership. Yeah. So, the other
less money. Is a civil partnership less money? Is it easier?
Another news this morning. We had a shooting over the weekend at the Strand yet again.
Saw that. Like,
What?
what is going on
What is
up
that like?
there?
Yeah. What? Where? What are the clubs that are?
I have honestly
I don't
lost
even know.
count.
Lilies, isn't it?
Yeah.
Lilies?
I've lost count of how many have been at that location now, to be quite honest, and I'm not even joking. But yeah, another one this weekend, and
I mean, you don't want to be anywhere near the Strand like around 1:00 in the morning on a weekend.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and this time some patrons actually got locked for their own safety. They were locked into the nightclub upstairs.
What?
Mhm.
So is there not a police presence there since this has been happening, or they
this
should
is a
be
question.
hiring
This
people?
is a question that we keep asking. And it looks like what happens is even if the police are there, they always seem to leave at the wrong time.
Mm-hmm.
So when they leave, that's when the criminals are like, oh, let's just have a shootout. So yeah, they probably just need to stay all night, I think.
Well, what are they doing? What else are they doing? That's where the action is.
You
You know what I mean?
Yes. So today is Commonwealth Day. So happy Commonwealth Day, everyone.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And so that
Happy
means that
Commonwealth
they're going to be having fly a flag for Commonwealth Day ceremony this morning at the government building. So if you see some stuff going on there, that's what that is.
Go fly flag.
Go
Isn't that the
fly a
same?
flag.
What like what flag? Any flag or
Well, I mean,
like the British flag?
we're going to be flying the Cayman Islands flag. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was figuring. I was like, I don't know. Can we just fly a flag? White flag.
All right.
Yeah. And the phase 2 of the Linford Pearson Highway widening is going to begin in earnest today. So please be mindful of that when you're making your plans, your travel plans, heading into
Oh, is
town.
this up by the roundabout at Hurley's? This is what we're talking about?
The horsey place, right?
Further down.
So this is
further
like
down.
this is
Yeah,
like
that's Shamrock. That's not Linford Pearson.
That's
yeah,
right.
not Shamrock. No, it's like you go down.
I drive that all the time. What are they? They're
They're
widening
widening
that?
it by the. You know how it goes down to one lane on each
Yeah.
side. They
Yeah.
they needed to widen that for. I mean, since
For
the
what?
so traffic's not as
Well,
bad.
are they widening the roundabout as well?
Yes, they're widening
Oh, I
that
see.
whole area right there.
I was like, it's pointless to have 2 lanes
Oh
into
no,
a
exactly.
single roundabout.
That's the problem is I think they finally understood that they can't keep widening roads out east further all to feed into one lane roads at the same and so I think that's what they're trying to work on.
Are they widening
you know
road
what it
down
was?
to the stoplights?
They had that in the plans for quite some time, but as you guys recall, there was some issue with the horse stable people not wanting to give up their land.
Yeah, which is weird because the whole other side is empty.
So I think they had to do some additional acquisitions and sort of move stuff around a little bit. So it takes a while, trust me.
Mm-hmm.
Because, just last week, I think it was last week, Thursday, the National Roads Authority was at the North Side meeting and they were giving a bit of an update on all the works that they have going on. And so even the extension of the East-West Arterial, which is a big, massive project, has to go through an impact study, like an environmental impact study, which could take, closer to 2 years.
Well, and that looks like it will be a huge impact on the environment right there.
Yeah. So it's
a lot.
It takes a while for them to go through the process and to make sure that all factors are considered before they just throw a road down. So I think it's much more involved than any of us would probably recognize. But anyway, phase 2 of at least the LPH is starting today.
Okay.
And this is estimated to take about 16 months.
All right. But you can still use that road during this time.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be like the Hurley's intersection where it's just constant construction, but proceed with caution.
All righty.
So Youth Parliament kicks off this morning as well. So big shout out to our young people who are going to be debating different things, including criminalizing sexual harassment. And we've got a big story that we're working on here this morning in terms of discussion with our audience, where a prison inmate was taken to the hospital and he ran into one of his victims. A lot of people are asking, how is that even permissible? But we'll talk about it.
All righty.
So lots going on. You guys have a fabulous Monday.
You as well. We'll catch you tomorrow.
Thank you. All right, folks. Happy Commonwealth Day. We are going to have a lot to talk about this morning. So let me grab some Water, of course. You guys chill out and enjoy some beloved Isle Cayman music, and we'll be right back after these messages for Monday Rewind.
Time for Monday Rewind. The Cold Hard Truths Monday Rewind Show recaps the weekend's news and events so you don't miss a beat.
Don't miss out.
All the weekend's source, news, gossip, and well, it wouldn't be a weekend recap show without traffic accidents too. Cayman Marl Road is Cayman's #1 news source and has the island's hottest morning talk show.
It's the hottest.
Make sure you don't miss a beat with Monday Rewind.
Rewind.
Tune in every Monday from 7:30 a.m. on both YouTube and Facebook.
All right, folks. My apologies. Welcome to Monday Rewind. Lots of interesting news kind of developing as we speak this morning. And of course, the same-sex marriage one is at the top of the news feed this morning. I see Renee is working on that one. Let me just send out a reminder to everybody who is actually tuned in on WhatsApp. We're going to talk about the prison situation first, because to me, this is an extremely egregious incident that happened over the weekend. And, I simply can't believe it. Oh my gosh. First of all, big shout out to Kevin, who's been working on weather for us. So now we're going to have a weather segment. I didn't realize the weather was that important to you guys. I got to be honest. I mean, I just look outside. I'm like, hey, it's raining. Expect rain today. But I want to give a big shout out to John. John's one of our viewers. And John said to me last week, he's like, when we had our guests on, he's like, I'm loving the show. Enjoyed your guests this morning. Love the Daily Buzz. But can we please get some weather? And I thought to myself, weather? He's like, yeah, we'd like some weather reports. And I thought, all right, well, the people ask and you give the people what they want. So right away, I mentioned it to our small but vivacious team here at CMR. And guess what? You guys are going to get the first live view of weather this morning. And here it is.
I'm Kevin Watler, and this is your CMR weather forecast. It's brought to you by WG Charters. Today, expect mostly sunny skies with the winds east-northeast at 15 to 25 miles per hour. The day will heat up to the upper 80s, and it will likely feel much hotter than that. Tonight, mostly clear skies are expected with the temperature dropping to the mid-70s. Winds will be lighter overnight. Sunrise this morning was at 6:35, and it will go down at 6:30 this evening. The moon will be up at 3:32 in the afternoon, and it will go away by 4:14 tomorrow morning. Today's moon is a waxing gibbous. For the rest of the week, lots of sunshine is expected. Of course, the occasional passing shower is possible, but if it does happen, it probably won't last very long. Winds won't be as strong, so the seas will be calmer, making it a great week to go to the beach or out boating. Now that's it for your CMR weather update, brought to you by WG Charters.
All right, fantastic. Looks like we're in for some nice weather today. I must say the weekend weather was actually quite nice as well. Thank you, Kevin, for that report. So yeah, you guys will be getting weekday reports from us now in terms of what the weather report has for us, has in store for us. So big shout out to the team, constantly making improvements, sometimes big, sometimes small, but everything at the end of the day, my apologies, makes a huge difference. Sport is next, folks. So if you are someone who is, I think I need to adjust my camera a little bit. If you are someone who is interested in sports, or you know a lot about sports and you want to be a sportscaster, do give us a call. We'd be happy to chat with you. All right, folks. Good morning to all of you who are tuned in. Virtuous, Irvlin, Marshall, Christine is here. Carol says, awful judgment, so wrong. Well, we can go through the judgment. It's 26 pages. We can spend some time with it. And then Christian says, why are Cayman's national observances belittled so frequently? It's Commonwealth Day, so fly a flag. A white flag, really? Respect, Chica. Yeah, I mean, I think they have a different sense of humor sometimes. And of course, they don't recognize how important Caymanians think, or how important our flag is to us. It's definitely one of our national symbols. And yeah. Good morning, Irvlin, Olivia, John, Wee Tracy, Nikki, Lily's here. Emma, good morning to Ingrid. Damien says, good morning, CMR. I like your weather idea. How about the expected weather forecast for the next 7 days using a weather app? Although weather can change if you're not, it's still a warning, rough, calm, or windy. I use Wind Finder. Well, Kevin has access. Kevin, do you still have access to all the fancy weather stuff coming out of the US? I think probably he's just doing it based on, they send like a daily weather report, actually. They send it every morning from the national, what do they call themselves? The Cayman Islands National Weather Service, which is part of the Ministry of Sustainability and Climate Resilience. And they do send that yesterday they sent it at 3:56 p.m. And I think you can get Do they do a more comprehensive, like, weekly forecast? Yeah, they do have a weekly forecast. So Kevin will take that under his belt, no doubt. He's listening to the program this morning. So yeah, we can post that up for you. Thank you for the feedback, Damien. Good morning, Amiria. I'm here sipping my tea. Yes, girl, I'm here sipping some coconut water. Morning, Sheila, Miss Morna, and Alba. And of course, Hero Blair just joined us. And there's tons more. There's over 200 people in the live stream already. It's just that only a few people always say good morning. Y'all got good manners. So listen, I know a lot of people just like to silently watch. That's not a problem. You can silently watch. I have tons of people who silently watch and they're like, see you in the morning. I'm pissed off. And y'all know the one topic that you can really get me going on is anything that does not consider the impact on victims, especially sexual abuse victims, survivors, and I don't care what anybody has to say. I will. Oh, give me 1 second. My apologies. Let me grab the phone. I'm noticing I don't have the phone to take phone calls. So let me just play a quick ad and then I'm going to grab the phone. My apologies.
Reliable Industries offers premier floor and rug cleaning services. Our deep clean option is ideal for accent and area rugs. Clean rugs and floors have many health benefits for both the workplace and home by removing allergens and pet hair and dander. Reliable has the qualified team and equipment to return your floors to pristine condition. Keep your floors looking their best by contacting the professionals at Reliable Industries today at 345-949-9303. Reliable Industries, the clean you expect, the service you deserve.
Okay, I figured you guys might actually want to call in this morning. So don't forget that you can call in 936-2626. That's 936-BOBO. All right, folks. So I'm pissed off. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't really appreciate how the prison does certain things. I mean, last week we talked about how a young man died in their care, basically. He was eventually taken to the hospital. But listen, the truth of the matter is he was not taken to the hospital because they called anyone. An outside person had to call 911 for them to go and collect this young man. And that's why when the prisoners were calling me that day, they were so upset. And, his family members have reached out and said, Sandy, if it wasn't for you doing that show as you did on Heroes Day back in February, they probably would have even allowed the ambulance to take him away, even when an outside person called. But we felt like, you were really instrumental in making that happen. We need some leadership, not just at the prison, but in all aspects of this country, from the political leadership straight down, that really has a sensibility and an understanding about how survivors of sexual abuse are impacted by a lot of decisions that are happening in this country. So it's really disturbing for me. And I have conversations with the political arm in this country about these things. And, sometimes I want to just sit here and just let it all out and go completely ballistic on everybody. But I recognize that y'all ain't ready for that. Although this is a cold, hard truth, that even when you hear me share my sentiments, and I do, go in a certain direction, I'm still reserving a lot. You would have to understand what I'm saying. Okay? When I have leaders of this country saying to me, for example, that when you have a teenager being sexually molested by another teenager, that somehow that has to be treated with kitty gloves because they're both teenagers. I in moments like that, I have to send very interesting messages to our political leaders because they do not understand. They all need to educate themselves. They need to take a class. And I don't mean go and do what's the course that's offered? I did this many years ago. Darkness to light. That's not what I'm talking about. Y'all need a little bit more than that. You need more than darkness to light. You need a friggin' listen. You need a comprehensive course in how this works. And if you really cared about our children and survivors of sexual abuse, to me, you would educate yourself, even if that meant surrounding yourself, my apologies, with people who are experts, and you really need to listen carefully to what the experts are saying. 25% of all sexual molestation cases happen by individuals who are teens. Child sexual molestation. 25% of those are not adults that are going after your children. It's other children. It's other legally defined, underage children. Now, we've talked about this before. The impact on a rape victim or the victim of ongoing horrendous sexual abuse is not changed because, the person was only 15 or 16 years old and the child was 7, 8, 9, or whatever. The impact remains the same. And we have people in this country, literally, who are not able to live with what their perpetrators have done to them. And yet the perpetrators just walk around just perfectly fine. So what happened over the weekend, folks, on Thursday, actually, is an inmate was taken. And again, this is pure slackness on the part of Northwood Prison, the entire prison system. What ministers are in charge of the prison system? Can we ask them to please get their ish together? Because this is despicable. And this isn't the first time. I'm going to give you guys a review here to jog your memory of how the prison is failing, not just us and the general public and trying to protect the general public, but the prison is failing even the prisoners themselves. They're not doing them any favors in prison. Well, normally when you go to prison, it's considered a penal situation. So in other words, you go there to be punished for your wrongs. Yes, rehabilitation is important. And I'm going to talk about rehabilitation here in a minute because I'm still confused about why the woman who was placed on leave for some trumped up charges is what I'm hearing, who was in charge of the rehabilitation program at the prison. She has not been returned to her position. She's still on leave. I'm sure it's still paid leave, but they don't seem to know what they're going to do with her. Well, this is interesting because what it means is the prisoners are not even getting the rehabilitation that they're supposed to be getting. Okay. I want y'all to listen very carefully to what I'm saying is happening at this prison. It's a lot. And no one seems to be addressing it in any satisfactory manner because they're just prisoners? Well, here's a perfect example, folks, of how prisoners are allowed to do things that are impacting the lives of people in this community. So on Thursday, some prison guard, and to me, it doesn't matter who it is. I mean, y'all are saying these are imported prison guards. I don't really give a damn if they're imported or not. I think it's the caliber of prison guards that we are hiring that is the problem. I don't care if they're from West Bay, East End, Jamaica, Timbuktu, right? If you hire a prison guard who doesn't understand that there should be some level of rules of engagement when you take a prisoner out in public, outside of the prison walls. And prisoners should not be permitted to be walking around like they own the place. They're not the governor. They're not the leader of government business. Okay? And yet, this is what I'm hearing happened on Thursday when this prisoner was taken to prison. Was taken to the hospital. So this guy is permitted to walk around like he is a king And evidently, as the worst misfortune in the world would have it for his poor victim, he runs into one of his rape victims and starts to have a conversation with her. This is so incredibly egregious. I cannot tell you how disgusting this is. And so the story goes that he's having a conversation with her. The young lady was 15 years old at the time of the sexual assault. And I'm going to talk about the nature of what kind of monster he is, because you need to understand. No sexual assault, no rape is pleasant. But this dude, if there's an argument for the death penalty when it comes to sexual abuse, this dude should be at the top of the list. He is sick in a very different kind of way. Like, honestly, they're all sick. Anyone who commits this type of offense, but he is a little bit extra on the sick-o-meter. So he runs into his victim and he starts apologizing apparently to his victim. Now, there is a program at the prison, some sort of, I forget what the heck they call it now. It's going to come to me in a second, where they believe that, it's a good idea to have prisoners understand the impact on their victims. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with this. It is a program that it works in other places. And, I get the concept behind it. Because oftentimes, society, you all as parents have raised young people into adults who are predators. And they have no concept of what it is to actually be empathetic with others. So their lack of empathy allows them to be monsters. They are disconnected from society. They're psychopaths, sociopaths, whatever you want to call them, narcissistic individuals out there to just use and abuse the entire world. This is what we are as a community raising. Now, I say as a community because individual parents obviously have the primary responsibility, but a lot of y'all are aunts and uncles and you could assist in some way and you're simply not doing it. You see these children from very early on with a lot of issues and you're not saying, we need to get this child some help. And of course, every single one of them that commits a crime wants to talk about what a horrible childhood that they've had. So they're pointing the fingers back at the parents, basically. Y'all have abused them. You've mistreated them. You were in drugs. You were doing this, you were in that. All of you are horrible parents. And that's why your children are turning out to be a shit show, basically. I'm not saying that's true in every case, but what I'm saying is there's a good argument to be made. So this young man thought that it was a good idea to walk up to his victim, which apparently, from what I understand, she was in such a state of immediate shock that she could not even respond to him. I want you guys to just visualize this for a minute, right? Listen to me. The victim called me yesterday. And at first I couldn't even understand who she was because it was nothing but a bunch of crying on the phone. I was like, who is this? What's going on? What's wrong? And then through the tears and the hysteria, I could hear her recounting what had happened. And then I was like, oh my God, this is the story. Imagine this man raped you multiple times, multiple counts of sexual molestation, videoed it. Like I said, I'm going to get into the details of his offense here in a second. And I want to call out his mother this morning as well. You need psychological help yourself. You are a sick individual. She's coming, just a minute. Okay? he decides that it's a good idea to walk up to his victim who would not have been expecting it. I mean, you know that there's sometimes in life when something happens, it throws you so off guard that you don't know how to respond. I don't know if you've ever been caught in a situation like this. I certainly have been, where somebody walks up to you and they say something, and honestly, you were just not expecting it. And so you're left speechless. Now, imagine for a minute that you're in her shoes. Someone has raped you multiple times in the most egregious way possible, videotaped it even. And you're going to the hospital, minding your own business, just having what you thought was going to be a normal Thursday. And here comes this dude walking up to you, having a conversation with you. And apparently the prison officer had no clue, because he's sitting there going, oh, I don't think she recognizes you. She was so traumatized that she was literally frozen with fear. And the prison guard is like, oh, I don't think she recognizes you. Why are you permitting this prisoner to walk around the prison like he owns the prison, first of all? And secondly, why is he permitted to talk to anybody? Now, I accept that it's entirely possible that the prison officer had no clue that that was his victim. But if you're sitting there listening to the conversation, which apparently he was close enough to say, oh, I don't think she knows who you are. Do you not hear this guy apologizing for raping her? And you immediately say, no, this shouldn't be happening. Apparently he didn't do that, whoever this prison guard is. And my understanding is he didn't do anything. So the victim literally runs out of the hospital, collapses outside, crying and hysterical. Some total stranger had to come to her aid to say, what is going on? Are you okay? Now she's an adult, but you have to understand where this would have put her back to her being that vulnerable teen again, who, as it turns out, did not even know that he had raped her. I'm going to tell you guys what he had done to her in just a second, as well as to others. This has set this woman back. If she has done years of therapy, this has probably set her back all those years. This entire weekend, folks, she was besides herself. She described it as saying, I never felt so unprotected. The victim, now an adult, says, I have never felt so unprotected. The prison needs the answer to this. They seem to skirt around a whole lot of issues when it comes up. And they have the civil service making all sorts of excuses for them. This they need to answer to. But here's what it is. Oh, he's such a model prisoner. After just serving a couple years in prison, he gets the right to be classified as a category D prisoner, which means that when he's on the outside, he's not walking around in handcuffs. He's walking around as he pleases. He can leave the prison. He's even eligible for work release. He's staying in a block that, less security. All this kind of foolishness. And I have to question and ask, how does he get category D status when the man just went to jail in, was it 2016? For 12 and a half years? And already he's been relegated to a category D low risk inmate, eligible for work release. He can go outside the prison without supervision, outside the prison gates. Lives on the F block and does not have to wear handcuffs when outside the prison, including to hospital visits. Really? But you see, here's the problem. This isn't the first time a sexual predator, a very serious sexual predator, has been relegated to this category D, low risk inmate status. And so, as I was thinking about this case further, and upon reflection, it occurred to me that one of the major issues here is how we are treating sexual predators, or for lack of a better word, not treating them. We are not treating these offenses, despite the judges finally getting a little bit closer to where they should be in terms of incarceration. 12 and a half years, good. He should have gotten a life sentence, really. But we're getting there with sentencing. How they are treated once they're inside of the penal system leaves a lot to be desired. They're not being taken seriously. So we have inmates, a lot of them from other places in the Caribbean who, oh, you rape a teenage girl, what's the big deal? That's where they come from. And I'm not asking you all. I'm telling you that we hire people from countries that have some of the most egregious records in the world when it comes to sexual abuse, especially of children. So you grew up in that environment. That's normalized. It's not a big deal. It's not a big shocker. So when you have someone in your custody who is a predator, a sexual predator, a child sexual predator, you as a prison officer don't see it as that big of a deal. This is the only thing that makes any sense to me. And that is why you're able to classify them so easily as a category D offender. Oh yeah, give him all these rights, all these privileges. If you don't believe where my logic is going here, let us take another look at a similar case. Remember this guy, give me 1 second here, I'm going to get his name. We reported on this as well. They had him as the prison cook. His name is, yes, prison inmate convicted of rape working at women's prison. This is back in February of 2020. Here we have another person. In prison. Okay. Convicted of another egregious rape. Rohan Anthony Gidar Singh, found guilty in 2017 of raping a hotel guest. This dude in 2020, again, just a couple years into his sentence, is able to get work release. Same foolishness, category D prisoner. See what it says here? Temporary release license board would normally allow a low risk category D offender to participate in reintegration program. He got 13 years. So I'm like, by 2017, how is he even defined as low risk category D and participating in a program that is designed for someone who just has, they're like at the tail end of their sentence? I am really, really confused. But what I'm not confused about here, folks, is the fact that the people in the prison who are making these decisions are clearly not qualified to do so. What is wrong with the prison? Similarities? Y'all see the similarities here? Both convicted of horrible rapes, and yet they're placed in this low risk category D offenders program and given all sorts of rights. A insensitivity to the victims is also very prevalent here. Because listen to what I'm telling you. There is no way in the world that anybody with an iota of sense would have placed Gadir Singh in a female prison as a cook, because apparently he worked at the hotel where he raped that visitor, that woman. And you're going to put him in a female prison of all places? Even if I thought he was eligible for work release, which I couldn't understand given the time frame, he was just sent to jail, y'all. 3 years into a 13-year sentence, already you're in a work release program? What the hell? And the only place you could find for this guy to work as a work release program is in our female prison with vulnerable females. You can't get more vulnerable than when you're locked up as an inmate. You can't run from him if he tries something. And you know how this story came to us? Inmates, prison inmates are like, I'm a rape victim. This is what the prison inmates were saying to me. I'm uncomfortable with this rapist working in the kitchen and serving her food. Having him here is making me uncomfortable. What prison administrator or what prison head thought that this was a good idea, that you put a rapist? This is putting a fox in the hen house. It is just unbelievable to me. It's the same thing. This guy, and I want y'all to commit his face to memory. He is permitted to walk around the hospital like he owns the place. And there are numerous people who saw him, who didn't know until the story came out what he was in for or whatever. But they were like, they said that at the time, they were like, why is this prisoner walking around like he's the governor or the premier? So much so that he was walking behind the prison officer who was on his phone half the time, not even paying attention. No handcuffs, no real control. I mean, if he really wanted to make a run for it, he could have. That would have been another story. Let me share some of the comments from people that saw him. This person says, hey, the issue with that prisoner, I saw them walking in, but I didn't know the guy, never heard of the case. But I thought it very strange that the prison guard was just actually casually walking next to the prisoner. So this eyewitness said, casually walking next to him. Others have said that at times he was walking behind him. Imagine that. Unbelievable. How is this remotely something that you would do? I don't understand. Right? And I suppose this man I said, this is what he was thinking at the time, this individual. I said, suppose this man just decides to run away. There's no way that prison guard could catch him. They were honestly just casually walking like friends going into the hospital. I remember it clear as day because I held my youngest son back because the man looked like a creep. Well, thank God this person is intuitive. These prison guards are too relaxed and friendly. Well, you know what? This parent is onto something, because if you think that he's not a creep, well, let's talk a little bit about what he's in prison for, shall we? He was an AC technician working for the company that his uncle here in the Cayman Islands owns. And he decides to go into somebody's house. Supposed to be there to do a job. And he starts molesting a 5-year-old child. Wow. Now, you know that takes some real balls, right? I mean, the kind of balls that should be chopped off, quite honestly. Unbelievable. How do you roll up into somebody's house and decide to molest their 5-year-old child. Well, thank God this 5-year-old was like, I'm going to tell somebody right away. She did not wait. She ran immediately for help. And her running for help meant that her family was able to grab this man and hold him until the police came. Now, you know he lucky, because a lot of families would not have just been holding him. So listen to how it was described. In September of 2015, Garcia was called to a family home to do some repair work on an AC unit. While there, although adults and family members were present, a curious 5-year-old girl was playing in her room next to where Garcia was working, and she peeked in to see what he was doing. In a matter of 10 minutes, by disguising it as play, he was able to persuade the girl to take off her clothes, sexually assaulted her, and then took a number of indecent photos. Wow. Folks, you don't need to look anywhere else right now. Look into the eyes of this man. This is the very definition of a sexual predator. Within 10 minutes, this is what he did. But we're not done with what he did. The little girl immediately reported the incident, the indecent acts, to her nanny and mother, who reacted quickly and bravely, the judge said, by calling the police and blocking Garcia's van with her own car. The judge said this was a gross breach of trust, where he took advantage of and indecently assaulted a lively and inquisitive child who had innocently looked in to see what he was doing, to quote unquote satisfy his own sexually deviant lust. His behavior was defined as depraved conduct and every parent's nightmare. But we're not done with Garcia yet, folks. He was arrested, and then the police get his phone, and they find out that he's been up to way more than that. Oh my God. Little did they know that this dude is such a sexual predator that when they started exploring his phone, they find over 1,000 images, pornographic images, child pornography. Listen to this. After seizing his phone, they found not only the images he took of the child that day, but around 1,000 more pornographic images and videos, as well as evidence that he had also shared that imagery. But even more disturbing, the police found pictures that appeared to show Garcia sexually assaulting and raping a local teenage girl while she was unconscious. The police were able to track down and identify that girl, who was unaware that Garcia, whom she believed to be a friend, had raped and indecently assaulted her on at least 2 occasions and had taken pictures and video. She was 15 years old at the time. He claims he believed that she was 16. Really doesn't matter how old she is, to be honest. You don't rape somebody who's unconscious because you don't have their consent to touch them at all. This dude is really sick. Unbelievable. They were close friends, neighbors. he was trying further sexual advances on her all the time. Teenager says that she has no memory of what happened, and it is not clear if she was drunk, if he had drugged her, or what happened. And then he took photos and videos of it. Now imagine you being that victim. And you going to the hospital on Thursday, minding your own business. And this guy has the audacity to walk up to you and start talking to you. I mean, I understand why she would have been struck with fear and why she probably couldn't talk or move or do anything. But honest to God, if that were me, I would hope that I would be able to muster up just enough physical strength to kick him in his effing balls to the point where he would have to go to the emergency room. How disgusting can you get? And then the prison officers stand there like, oh, I don't think she knows who you is. Really? You don't think so? You don't know what this guy is in jail for? Because even if you didn't know the details of what he did, but you knew he was in jail for rape, and you hear him apologizing to someone for what he did to them, wouldn't you in your brain, I don't know how smart these prison officers are either, but I mean, it would only take 2 seconds for you to put it together and say, what the hell are you doing? You shouldn't be talking to her. That's not what happened. In the victim's own words, this prison officer did nothing, absolutely nothing to protect her. She says that she's been suffering mentally the entire weekend. She had complete PTSD. And then on top of it, his mother of the year decides to find this girl because afterwards her dad contacted the prison to say, WTF, are you people crazy? She's contacted her lawyers. They put in maximum security all of a sudden now. So my understanding is the prison officer went back to the prison and didn't even mention what happened, did nothing, filed no report, nothing. The prison didn't know about it until her dad called to say, what are y'all doing? Wow. You know, I can't make this stuff up. I cannot make, this is like writing a horror story, and I can't make it up. And then the next part I could never make up is the mother. Here she is. Boy, I got some words for her. Really? This is the kind of monster you raise. Instead of taking selfies all the time, trying to look sexy, maybe you should have been doing a better job raising your son. If y'all only know the words going through my mouth to describe what she looks like, the kind of mother she looks like. Really? Well, we can see what she's all about, dressing up and looking pretty. Probably not even trying to be a good mom. She has the audacity. Take a good look at her. Make sure you know her name is Luz Adriana Garcia Lopez. She turns around and decides to look up the victim. The audacity. Look up the victim on Facebook, find her, reach out to her, and tell her that she must drop the charges. Or the latest complaint, I should say, against her son because, oh, you guys were friends at one time. You were friends. So she says, in the name of that friendship, drop this because now he's been put in maximum security. It's like, what? Are you kidding me? This is just, like I said, I mean, you can't make that stuff up. This is unbelievable. So this is, folks, what went down. This woman has the nerves to call this girl. She should be arrested for trying to interfere with a complaint against her son. But you see, this goes back to the point that I'm always making, that in this community, y'all be protecting these predators like nobody's business. I've never seen anything like it in my life. Protecting a predator by trying to make this young lady feel like she's not entitled to her feelings, like she has done something wrong. Because she's made these complaints. Well, let's have a look at what you guys are thinking. Good morning. I can't even tell y'all how disturbed I am by the whole thing. Good morning, Robert, Lourdes, morning. Miss Alban, Miss Warner here. Larry, Emma. Emma says, bad part is it's usually people that you, as a victim, trust. Even more egregious. Morning, Sherry Ann. This viewer says that they love when they go to the hospital with prisoners because they get a chance to go on their phone. Miranda says, sent to prison for a stick of weed, yet prison officers selling weed to prisoners in prison. What a crying shame. KK, I believe that's you. Says, imagine he thought the victim would suck it up. I would have pelted a chair right at him, sick idiot. Good morning, Felicia. DJ Trucking says, raping Cayman is not taken seriously, sad but true. And I completely agree with you. Even when they have been convicted of these grave offenses, we see on more than one occasion where they seem to get this preferential D, category D status really, really fast. There's absolutely no way in hell that on the front end of your sentence that you should be a category D for these types of offenses. There's certain types of offenses that should never make you even eligible to be a low risk prisoner, because if you knew anything about sexual offenses, folks, you would understand that that is one of the offenses that you're more likely to repeat your entire life. There's no such thing as low risk for those individuals. If they get the means and the opportunity, they're going to reoffend again. And yet we're talking about they're low risk, giving them no rehabilitation, by the way, but they are low risk. Really? Gadir Singh, or whatever the heck his name is, Gadiring, whatever. He just went to jail in 2017. By 2020, 3 years into 13-year sentence, he's already a category D. So it's like he became category D the second he walked into prison. And you're getting privileges to go to the female prison. Really? This man broke and breached the trust of a guest at a hotel. In the case of the other one this weekend, he breached the trust of someone who thought he was a friend. a neighbor. You don't see how deceitful these guys are, prisoners, prison inmates, prison administration. You guys are supposed to be the experts. And you don't see the level of deceit involved in what they did, that all of a sudden, the second they get to prison, they're a category D, low risk prisoner with all these rights. And you see, because Cayman is so small, it's not unbelievable entirely that they might actually be on the outside and run into one of their victims. This is why there has to be better controls in place. Now, I'm going to talk about some solutions here because it's easy to address the issues. We can all see what went wrong here. But we need to also, on the tail end of this discussion, talk about what could have been done differently. Because clearly the prison administration is not capable of thinking on their own. They're making some amateurish decisions that even someone with a little bit of common sense would be doing better. So clearly we need to write the manual for them on, okay, this is how you handle this type of situation. Ingrid says prisoners that need to go out of jail for no matter the reason are not supposed to be walking without handcuffs or escorted by more than one officer, much more this kind of criminal. He knew what he is, and he will never change, even if the jail assisted him with counsel. Criminal is criminal. Janetta says for such category that he have, the prison has to make an arrangement with the hospital. The prisoner will be attending to whatever area in the hospital so they're aware and take the prisoner straight. I mean, we're going to come to that. Oh yeah, the mother is definitely worse than the son in some respects. They're both sick. And of course, we know statistically speaking, the chances of him having done this before are pretty high. It's a very bold move, folks, to go into someone's home, a total stranger, and decide that you are going to molest their child in 10 minutes. Make the child undress and get naked. I mean, I have a 5-year-old, and I can tell you this man would not be leaving my house in one piece. But you know, as parents, I was actually talking to my husband. Normally, I don't talk to my husband about work because he's just like, he doesn't really get into it, right? And so I was saying to him that the show this morning is no doubt going to be interesting. He's like, oh, well, you can't say that to me, not tell me what it's about. So I told him. He was so upset about it. But I also took the opportunity because I think men are not always as careful with their children as they should be. And I said to him, you know, even when I have service workers come to my house, because little kids are very curious, they'll be like, oh, what's this person doing? I don't let my daughter out of my sight. Service workers here, and I'm here with my daughter. She's with me. And I will actually say to her, you know, these people have come into her home, but they're not our friends. They're here to do a job. Whether it's the AC technician, you know, the guy who needs to fix the ceiling, whatever. They're here to do a job. And they do the job, even if we're nice and friendly to them, which we always are. We might offer them some water, but we're not going to play with them. Because that little 5-year-old thought she was playing. Although in the end, she knew something was wrong. And I specifically will say things to my daughter like, you know, you can greet people, but they're not your friend. And you stay with mommy because not everybody is as nice as they appear. How sad. We live in a world where a 5-year-old will be taken advantage of by a monster like him, but it is the truth. The prison officer was way too slack. Melanie, I don't know what that says. What language are you speaking, Mel? Mel must be so upset that she's writing in gibberish this morning, or is that code? I'm not sure what that's supposed to be, Mel. But here's the thing. The prison has too much freedom. Not even the police can intervene. This is absurd. Listen, this is beyond absurd, really. But here are some of the things that needed to happen differently. Give me 1 second. First of all, folks, when you are escorting a prisoner outside of the prison, anywhere at all that they can have contact with the general public, there should be some basic protocols followed. I don't think, and I don't care what he's categorized as in prison. He's now walking around, according to eyewitnesses, in plain clothes. No shackles, no handcuffs, nothing. This is what an eyewitness said. Walking like they're friends. This person said, try to get video footage from the hospital around 10:30 to 11 o'clock. That's when you can see them walking like they're friends. I suggest the prison undertakes a thorough investigation into how this happened, and they get that video footage. This is why we don't have any confidence in the prison, you see? Because their slackness begins at the very top and goes all the way down. It's not just a prison inmate sneaking in marijuana into the prison that we need to be concerned about. It's also the administration making really poor decisions. No accountability. None whatsoever. They should not be permitted to walk around outside of the prison and not be in handcuffs. I'm sorry. You're a prisoner after all. There's a reason why you go to prison. And putting a prisoner in handcuffs is just a mere precaution. Because, you know, the way that our prison has been slacked in the past has actually caused people to get killed. Let us not forget that. Their slackness is world renowned in a way. Just last week, I think it was on Friday actually, I was scrolling through Facebook, as you guys can appreciate I do. March the 11th, was that Friday? Today is the 14th. March the 11th, yes, on Friday. And I came across this image and this post that ironically made me remember how slack the prison is. And we should never forget how slack they are. Because of their slackness, this young lady here, Sabrina Shern, is dead. Her family will never be able to pick up the phone and call her. They won't be able to wish her a happy birthday. She won't be having any Christmases with them. Nothing. You know why? Because of prison slackness. She was killed by a prison inmate in prison custody. Y'all remember this? Least we forget, she lost her life on March the 11th, 2009. Isn't it ironic? 13 years ago. And it seems to me, folks, that the prison has not learned a damn thing in 13 years. How is it possible? Miranda says the next trip out, he's going to get married to Cayman to avoid deportation and get the rights to family life. Well, we can see that that's entirely possible too. Oh, now the prison addressed that one. They go back and create the narrative that they want us to believe, but we know better. Explain it to me, folks. This young lady's dead. My condolences to her family, but nothing's going to bring her back. Her sister posted something on Facebook. Says 13 years ago on this day, everyone was going about their daily life, and little did we know your life was taken from you. I miss you, Sabrina, and I love you. Please continue to be your angel above and watch over us. It's the hardest thing to lose a sister, but harder when you lose your best friend at the same time. I will never forget you, as you will live in my heart forever. Sabrina Marie Shern. March 25th, 1987 to March 11th, 2009. She was killed by a prisoner, low-risk offender working on the prison farm. And once again, the slackness of the prison officers allowed this to happen. I put her face up here because victims are real people, right? We can show you her face. I can't show you the face of his rape victims, of this other guy, but I can show you what happens when the system is not working as it should. There's absolutely no reason why this incident should have happened on Thursday. Absolutely none. Pure slackness, that's all. There should be some protocols when you're dealing with inmates, folks, especially when they're out in public. How many times, how many lives are going to have to be lost? Remember the other one who came out, who was working in the streets doing road works and end up killing someone, gang killing? Again, he was a low-risk prisoner too. Because of those murders by incarcerated individuals, they had to turn around and scrap that program. You know, the program itself isn't the issue. It's the slackness of the officers that you have hired to do a job who are simply not doing the job. That's what's really going on here. And it continues to happen. Y'all think that this is something different and something new? I'm going to have to refresh my screen. For some reason, things are moving a little bit slow. So just give me 1 second. Marshall says that the prison officer needs to be fired. You think? Let me refresh. 1 moment, please. Pure slackness, folks. Unbelievable. Robert says only in Cayman. Well, I'm kind of really beginning to wonder. Jonathan wants to know if the prison officer still has his job. If they do, That is all one needs to know. Probably get promoted too. Let me tell you how slack things are in Cayman. I was just talking about Sabrina Shern in that situation, right? Do you know that the prison officer in her case, you know whatever happened to him? Well, he was told to resign from the prison. And then he went and got a job. Hold on now. Where's my drum roll? I don't think I've even programmed a drum roll into this board as yet, but this is I need a message here that says WTF. Right? Where do they put this guy? You wouldn't believe it. But if you read CMR, you'd know exactly where they put him. Any guesses? Anybody wants to take a wild guess? Morning, Alice. Where did they put him? Well, guess what? They put him working with the most vulnerable of the most vulnerable, with their children at the Francis Bawden Children's Home. Okay. When I tell you that you can't make this stuff up, I'm not kidding. You really can't make this stuff up. I'm like, hold on a second. You get the courtesy of being able to resign, right, from your government job. You're not a Caymanian, so why are we keeping you here? Only God friggin' knows. Caymanian lost her life because of you and your slackness. So you're made to resign. You resign. And then friend business from Yard gonna hire you at the Francis Bawden Children's Home. Wow. Oh. How on earth? Yes. Ingrid is like, what? Roderick is in shock and disbelief. I'm not kidding y'all. And this is the kind of stuff that it seems like I don't know what they'd be hiding it for, because eventually we gonna find out. John says this is ridiculous. If it is, if what? Ridiculous, not even the word for this. This should be criminal. Our government is hiring people to do a job and paying them a very handsome salary, and they're not doing the job. As much as I've talked to you guys about the Francis Bawden Home, the Caves Foundation, y'all not paying attention to me. When I say y'all, I mean this government is not paying attention, and they're going to sit back on their laurels and do nothing until another child, because one has already been killed because of slackness, from Mr. Sidney that was there previously. May his soul rest in peace, but he was still slack in that job. Another government is in, and to the best of my knowledge, they have done nothing with the Caves Foundation board. Why? Why is the same board there? That board should have been one of the first ones you changed out, because that's a top priority. Protecting our children who are essentially in your care, in your custody. The little boy sneaking through the window the other day to have access to a young girl in custody. And these so-called workers at the Francis Bawden Home, they don't even know what's going on. The slackness is unbelievable. And I keep saying it, and nobody not listening. And the day that one of those girls gets killed, they've already had sexual assaults and other stuff going on. But the day that one gets killed, then they're going to be like, oh, yeah, well, Sandy did tell y'all, They refuse to hire Caymanians in the top position. at the Case Foundation. I'm hearing now they've given the position to some Sheldon Clark. I don't know who Mr. Sheldon Clark is, but I can tell you one thing, he not Cayman. And the allegation is he's one of the male staff that was involved in having sex with another female staff member at the facility, including the ex-manager. The question remains, why can't a qualified Caymanian be manager of that home? There is something wrong with this country. Where you have qualified social workers, you have the likes of Sylvia Wilkes applying for a position to run a home. Sheldon apparently has been acting manager from December when Denise finally resigned. They were glad to get rid of her. Another pariah. And here goes another one again. Why can't we learn? What is wrong with us? You know, I was surprised recently. I told you guys on Thursday I had bought a hat and some other stuff from the museum. And I'm surprised that Friday was Cultural Day. Really nice. It's great to see the premier saying, you know, as Caymanians, we should be proud of who we are, including our Caymanian dialect and our accent, whatever. This is all fantastic. Thank you, Premier. That's great. But then somebody needs to tell me, and I know it's not him and his administration, but still, how is it that the National Museum is being ran by a non-Caymanian? A symbol of our history and our national pride, and we can't even find a Caymanian for that job? Y'all gotta be joking. What? And then we want to look at private sector and tell them that they must hire Caymanians and put Caymanians first? Wow. How about the government does that? The National Museum, the Cayman Islands Museum, you can't find a Caymanian to run that. Are you kidding me? Case Foundation, you can't find Caymanian managers who understand these children, who more than understand them actually cares. Because, you know, we're hiring people who are just here for a paycheck. They're not passionate about their jobs. They don't care about those children. That's why they could be there fornicating and going on with all kind of foolishness. Just like the inmates call me and talk, these children talk too. Some of them are no longer in the system and they are still talking about their experiences there. Because what says Mr. Sheldon's a good guy? Well, I don't care if he's a good guy or not. My point is qualified Caymanians applied for the position. And more importantly, you might think he's a good guy because maybe you don't know what else is going on behind the scenes. I'm just saying. There's a level of professionalism that has been lacking at that facility for a very long time. The ugly truth says if it's one thing I have learned when I used to work for the civil service, they believe foreigners care more about Cayman than the Caymanians do. What a mess. Marshall's government was talking about protecting the children from COVID, but they weren't protecting them from sexual predators. Well, I mean, listen to me. We are hiring rejects. A lot of the people that we see running here to apply as police officers and whatever, they're being rejected from their own country, running from something or another. Really something else. So let's get back to the prisoner, shall we? Let's give them some advice. No inmate should be walking around without handcuffs on and a proper escort, which means that they don't walk behind you. They don't walk beside you. there is a proper order of how you should be escorting a prisoner. The other thing that occurred to me is, Cayman's a small place, so it's entirely possible that this could have happened. Why is it that the prison does not arrange with the hospital to have inmates go in at a specific time? For example, with COVID, we had our senior hour when we had all these restrictions in place, like if you were not a senior or alphabet day or whatever, you couldn't go. Why is it that the prison and the hospital couldn't coordinate and say in the mornings from 8 o'clock until 8:30 for non-emergency? Because if it's an emergency, then you can't really control that, right? For non-emergency routine procedures, radiology and x-ray, whatever, you take these guys in from 8:30 until 9. And there's a general notice sent out in the community, HSA, pay attention, that says in the mornings from 8:30 until 9, that's when prison inmates are seen for their different services. So if you are someone who never wants to run in to a prison inmate, never book an 8:30 to 9 o'clock appointment. Common sense. You feel me? That wouldn't be that difficult to implement now, would it? And I would know, okay, I'm a victim, right? I have advance notice. I don't want to go anywhere near that hospital between 8:30 and 9 o'clock in the morning because that's when inmates are going to be there. Or from 8:30 until 9:30, whatever. I would make an alternate appointment. To me, these are things that you could have a think about. Just develop the policy, and it can be any time. Look at your existing appointments. When is less busy? Is it less busy early in the morning, later in the day? And you set that hour aside for routine appointments for prisoners. And you make this announcement to the general public so that this young lady who's already been traumatized and is already suffering from PTSD now times 2, she would have known that, okay, I don't want to go to the hospital at this particular hour because inmates are going to be there. And lo and behold, one day I might run into my rapist. The ugly truth says, well, remember the government hired a foreigner to help unemployed Caymanians find work. How's that been working out for them? Ah, boy, you can't make it up. Magdalene says that's why private sector can get away with hiring non-Caymanians. Well, the government is certainly leading by example in a lot of instances. Sorry. Takia, I think that's how your name is pronounced. Forgive me if it's incorrect. Says nothing will change because those in high positions don't care to make a change. All you hear is the situation is being investigated, and then you hear nothing about it. Morning, Carmelie. Morning, Ricardo. How can it get any better, says Ricardo, when the people that are running it, when in their country, aren't no better? Miranda mentions lodge. I don't know if, listen, just pure slackness is the problem. Nobody at Francis Baden is no lodge member. The slack prison officers aren't lodge members. But there needs to be some consequences to their actions. How about now this prison officer is reprimanded? Okay, the prisoner got his rights taken away. He's back in maximum security. Again, he was convicted and he went to jail when, in 2016? What year are we in now? 2022, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So maybe he's halfway through his sentence because you're only serving 60%. He should be getting prepared to be deported, first of all. Just keep his ass in maximum security until it's time for deportation. Because like somebody else said, he'll run out there now and find some fool came in to get married to. And then the next thing you know, he has a right to family life and we can't get rid of him. just start preparing the deportation papers. I have a thought as well. So I was thinking about this yesterday as I was reading some of the comments, right? You know, a prison is quite full. It's busting at the seams, quite frankly. And I was thinking to myself, why can't we, he's Colombian, he's not from the Cayman Islands. Why don't we have an arrangement with some of these countries? Okay, Jamaica, Colombia, even maybe the US, the UK, where they take the prisoners and keep them incarcerated, and we pay a small nominal fee for them to do so. So hear me out now. Everything in Cayman is expensive, including maintaining and keeping a prisoner. Oh, they get first-rate service, just like me and you going to the hospital. He going to radiology for God knows what. Right? Get x-rays. And I'm not saying that people shouldn't get medical care when they're in prison, but everything is on our dime. 3 square meals a day, snacks, TV, access to the gym, this, that, the next thing. Let me just put it this way. If he was in a Colombian jail, his quality of life would be reflective more so of the crime that he has committed. So we're paying an average of what, $70,000, $75,000 per annum to house prisoners, huh? Why don't we pay, because, you know, I don't know what the exchange rate in Colombia, but I'm thinking it's probably pretty good. Why don't we pay them half that figure, $35,000 per annum, to keep him in a Colombian jail for the entire duration of his sentence? Because I don't know, anybody from Colombia here that can tell me, do they have early release? Right? So we will pay for you to incarcerate him. And you keep him in the jail there. But of course, we got to be careful because, you know, some of these countries, you can't trust them. We just want to make sure he's in jail. So occasionally we might just pop up and do a visit. Someone else says, pay for what? Deport his ass back to their country and declare them persona non grata here. I mean, but he has to go to jail for what he did. So I get the concept of deportation. And yes, he should be deported, but he also needs to pay for what he did. Especially these particular type of predators, because he's going to run back to Colombia. Although he go there and molest somebody, he's more likely to lose his life. But still, his victims need to know that he's going to spend some time in jail. The victims can't be like, oh, the worst he gets is deportation. But I think we need to start thinking more along these lines. I mean, one, we don't have the space, we don't have the capacity at the prison to house all these criminals that we're importing, because quite frankly, we have enough of our own homegrown criminals, huh? If truth be known. So maybe we need to start thinking about like a prisoner exchange program, except we don't take any if they're not ours, especially. And listen, when the US grabs them, keep them. You grab a Caymanian overseas doing wrong, keep them. Lock them up for a long time, because they're going to know what hardcore prison is like. No access to family, visiting them every weekend, taking them goods. So I think this is something that should and could be explored to our benefit. Carmelie says, just like how they do for the AIDS and HIV patients, they go like 5 a.m. in the morning. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. El Rey says, Sandy, that might not be a good idea for violent inmates who have enemies on the outside waiting for them. Well, I mean, certainly no one should know when an inmate is actually being transported. So it's not like you're going to put up a notice to say, prisoner ABC Ebanks, who's a gang member is going out the prison right now. Everybody come run to the hospital to see him. I do take your point though, that I suppose if they know that there's a set time, but you don't think if Elray, let's be honest now. If somebody really wanted to get to a prisoner, you don't think that would be easy enough? If he's being transported to the hospital, they got phone access. They could be just like how they called me on the phone. They could be calling anybody. Oh, he coming now for doctor's visit. Go get him. That's why you need a little bit more than a prisoner walk around chatting on his phone to be the one in charge of inmates. I'm just saying. Jay says only in Cayman prisoners are not in prison. Cayman prison is a joke to prisoners, to criminals. DJ Trucking says that Cayman prison is way too nice. And my point is, when we send them to another prison, they're not going to get that kind of nice treatment. Marshall says when it comes to the hiring of Caymanians, the government has to lead by example. Until then, it's always going to be the same old shit. Andrea says the squeaky clean image that Cayman wants to project when it comes to rape and molestation is horrible. There needs to be stricter laws. If he was in Jamaica, he would have been deported. Damien says that we need to have CCTV cameras in a cell linked via satellite and monitored 24/7 in Northwood security room. It's just unbelievable. El Rey has thrown a little bit extra, a little profit in there. They win and we win. Rovina says, good morning, Sandy. In Honduras, they don't get that kind of treatment. Let me assure you that very few places in the world, and I know I've read the reports about how despicable they say Northwood Prison is, but despite that, prisoners seem to have a lot of freedoms that they don't elsewhere. Miranda says they send Caymanian prisoners to the UK, and yet we keep expat prisoners here. What a joke. Well, let's be clear now. We are sending our own because they remain, especially when it comes to gang activity, very active members. And in fact, if y'all were listening to the recent case the other day, we'll wait for the Court of Appeals decision in that one, you would also know that they're all the way in the UK still running the show. Thanks to the imported English officer that then prison director brought here to the Cayman Islands, who was screwing one of the inmates and has continued, despite her returning to the UK, to maintain a relationship with him. And she's helping his family here. Y'all need to pay attention. I'm telling you, some of the foolishness that's going on out there would blow your mind. This is what was in court the other day. She is still $10,000 giving it to the brother here and all kind of foolishness. So there's good reasons why they're there. And I think the Court of Appeal will keep them there. They can hire lawyers to fight for them, boy, I tell you. Jay says in Latin countries, you're will do the time, no damn early release there. They're lucky if they see the sunlight, much less walk outside the prison gates. Well, in that case, I would say really talk to their officials to see what we can work out. I'm pretty sure they're not spending $35,000 on them prisoners in those countries. Real deal time. Ms. Darlene says, with no disrespect, our government lead by example when they have businesses and hiring foreigners. Never happened under the sun. It takes people power movement for that to change. El Rey says a satellite CCTV camera. We can't even do a proper CCTV camera on the ground. Now that's the truth. That's another waste of millions. I don't know where Anita is, but I'm telling you, the person who's running the National Museum is not a Caymanian. And I'm sure she's a nice enough person, but come on now. Our National Museum? Give me a break. Come on. We got to do better. We have got to do better. All right, so everybody's talking about this Privy Council decision. And I tell you what, I'm not entirely surprised by the decision. So no same-sex marriage for Cayman. Really, this is a decision. They looked at both the Cayman Islands and Bermuda. So two decisions that came down as well, essentially at the same time. And the conclusion, we can have a look here at the decision, is that the government's position, which is that there's nothing constitutionally or any Bill of Rights that guarantees you a right to a same-sex marriage, is correct, although they seem to take the same position that the Court of Appeal took, which is essentially that despite that, you've got to do something. So you can't, our previous position of having nothing in place could not be what was permitted to continue. Let me just have a look at the decision here. So it is a 26-page judgment for the Cayman Islands. I think we can probably upload the judgment as well. Just give me 1 second here. So essentially, the decision is, as it says here at point 60. Let me just share this with you guys. So this is a decision, folks. Let me just increase this so you can actually see it. There we go. 26 pages. Conclusion: for the purposes cited above, the board will humbly advise Her Majesty that the appeal should be dismissed. Constitutional rights and the Legislative Assembly. So we scroll up a little bit to get the conclusions. And I think the one before kind of summarizes it. So the interpretation to be given to the Bill of Rights as explained in this judgment does not prevent the Legislative Assembly from introducing legislation to recognize same-sex marriage. The effect of the interpretation endorsed by the board is that it is a matter for the choice of the Legislative Assembly rather than a right laid down in the Constitution. So this is kind of interesting because, as you guys know, there is another challenge that is being made against the governor's decision to actually implement the civil partnerships that he has in that, or domestic partnerships in that legislation. So it will be interesting, without a doubt, if that challenge is successful or not, what the outcome overall will be. All I can tell you is we're going to report on it. We're going to keep an eye on it. We'll invite some of the players involved in this to come on the show and kind of discuss this. But this has just been released today, it looks like. March the 14th, yep. And so there it is. They were heard on February the 23rd and 24th of last year. Ben Toner and others. The AG's office had tons of representatives. And so this case goes through all of the details, and obviously they would have looked at the law as well. Notice what they said. It was common ground in the Court of Appeal and in common ground before the board that under Section 9.1 of the Bill of Rights, the right to respect for family and private life, the Legislative Assembly of the Cayman Islands was required to provide the appellants with a legal status functionally equivalent to marriage, such as a civil partnership. The government and Legislative Assembly were in breach of this obligation, so the Court of Appeal made a declaration to that effect. The government does not appeal against that declaration. This obligation has now been complied with by the promulgation of the Civil Partnership Law 2020. But like I said, it's interesting because we do know that, what's her name? Katina Anglin is actually challenging the Civil Partnership Law as well. I don't think she'll be successful, but only time will tell. And so now they look at the history of everything, the introduction of the Constitution in 2009, and they go through all of the relevant arguments that were made, the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. So folks, it's a very small judgments as judgments go. So, if you're interested in constitutional law in particular and the same-sex ongoing debate, have a look at this. We do have it up on our website, I think. I'll double check with Renee. Um, so there you have it. They look at Articles 8 and 10, Article 9 of the ECHR, Section 16 of the Bill of Rights. Goes through a little bit of the history of how all of this happened. All right. The appeal, they call themselves the board, by the way. The Court of Appeal refers to themselves as the board. All right, so we'll delve into this, I suspect, a little bit more. I think it's probably a good idea to bring some of the experts on in relation to that. Ms. Rhonda says, good morning. Thank you for all the good information you give to us, Sandra. We're not going to do any better. Every 4 years, we vote in the same people. Look at West Bay. They can do no wrong, beat up women, and stay, and the story goes on. Wishing you a good day, and please let us continue to pray for our neighbors and Ukraine. Miss Darlene says they're not married yet in So in Love. I'm not really sure what that means, but I think that they were waiting the outcome of this case to probably decide what they wanted to do. Now, I don't know if they have a civil partnership license. I don't actually know, to be honest. They may have applied for a license to get one, I think. You know, both Chantal and her partner are actually very private individuals. I don't think that this was ever a fight that they really wanted to take on. But the previous administration kind of took the previous administration, meaning the political arm, really and truly left them no choice, really. I mean, let's just be honest. Had they responded to them, even, a courtesy response, I don't think that we would be where we are today. What a hot mess. Well, they fought a good fight. The Court of Appeal has ruled. And it is what it is. Marshall says Katina needs to make sure that she pays the money she owes for her case. Oh. Richard says if we all minded our own business and stay out of everybody else's business, life would be a lot easier. I'm not quite sure, Richard, that always works for a number of different reasons. But when it comes to I think when it comes to certain types of things that impact more than one person, it becomes the community's business. It's not really, it's like we sat here and discussed this case with this woman this morning. That's a matter of public interest. So a lot of these things fall into the public interest domain. I think when it comes to the LGBTQ community, a lot of people, that's the only issue that they feel that matters in terms of fighting, which is kind of crazy. So DJ Truckin says 10 years should be the minimum for rape with beating 4 times a week. No good behavior, BS. What's interesting about this case with this guy is he actually got 18 years, but because he pled guilty, sort of, he got a reduction of the usual 1/3. And as an interesting aside, when we talk about the Privy Council, the prosecution in this case, quite interestingly enough, actually appealed the decision. And the decision and the sentencing, because they felt like he should have gotten more than the 12 and a half years. Now, I couldn't find the full case, like how we have it here. It's so nice now with modern technology that we can get these cases and they can be circulated. So what I had for this guy, what's his name again? Garcia, was just like the heading. So I could see that the DPP had appealed the sentencing, but I couldn't see the full judgment. So I'm trying to see if I can put my hands on a bit of a details of what happened, because I don't know if they actually won the appeal or not. I'm guessing they probably didn't, but I'm trying to see if I can get some more details on that. So there was an actual, it was on this case law website. So they appealed it in January of 2017. And Cayman Islands Court of Appeal. So he pleaded guilty of the following committed to the Grand Court for sentencing by the summary court: taking images, indecent images of a child, 7 of those, and on the basis of plea, which you tendered, was that there was a total of between 20 and 25 such images. Mind you, he actually had way more images, but they did a plea agreement, right? The images were indecent and no doubt obsessing, but thank goodness they were low-level indecency, whatever that means, compared to some of the stuff one sees in the courts. This is what the justice said at his sentencing. So you can imagine these judges and stuff, they become a bit, I think, somewhat immune to it because they see so much stuff. So he pleaded guilty to 2 offenses of gross indecency. These offenses, all of them, took place on the same day and concerned the same child, a child born in 2009. The offenses were committed in gross breach of trust. So this was a 15-year-old. Or was this the 2009? Yeah, that wouldn't have been a 5-year-old at that time. And then they go on to say, on the day in question, the defendant is working inside the child's home doing work as part of his employment on his air conditioning unit. Her mother, was downstairs, and the defendant was upstairs in the master bedroom. Child, honey, please. Wow. To the police, the defendant denied the child's truthful allegations. The judge goes on to say what happened on that incident was every parent's nightmare. The child and his parents, who suffered greatly, as set out in the victim impact report, which I've read in full, and all as a result of the defendant's depraved conduct. His telephone was examined. I also referred to were found more significantly. Still, the examination revealed more offending, and what now appears as indictment 17 of 16 and 72 of 16. The indictment 17 of 16 alleges a series of very serious sexual assaults. The victim, a girl born in 1999, she and the defendant had known each other since 2011. The offenses against her were committed on the 9th of December 2014 and the 28th of December 2014. There were 2 counts of rape and 6 counts of indecent assault. It says here that there had been some kissing and cuddling between the two in the past, but she had rejected his request for full sex. She does not recall the offenses taking place and had no idea what had happened until the police informed her. On one occasion, she was either drunk or drugged into oblivion. The defendant began the offending in a car and then continued in a house where they were both staying. Overall, on the first occasion, he raped her vaginally, sucked her breast, put his penis in her mouth. This is what's in the decision, y'all. On the second occasion, he licked her anus, penetrated her vagina with his finger, and her anus with his thumb and finger, and vaginally raped her. You can imagine running into someone who did all of this to you. She said at the time that in her victim impact report that she thought of the defendant as only her friend and like a brother. And she had continuing problems with anger and sleep. She feels ashamed, even though in fact she has nothing to be ashamed of. Wow. Unfortunately, that's as much of this case that I can read because of how it is presented. So I'm going to try to see if I can find this to see what their decision was in relation to the sentencing. It's available in this case law site, but I don't know why all of these, this isn't that long ago, 2017. I don't know why all of these cases are not publicly available for everyone to read. Free of charge, by the way. So I'm going to see if I can actually find the decision. Because I think that our website, the judiciary website, doesn't have anything going back that far, but I'm going to try to see if I can find it. Judicial. So Cayman Islands law reports. Judgments. We have Court of Appeal. But I don't know how they only have 100 ordered by judgment date. They only have 131 here, so I don't think it goes back that far. To be honest, I don't know how far back it goes, but I kind of think it doesn't go back that far. No, it goes back to, hold on a second. 2014, 2012, 2017. Quite honestly, there's not that many. The Queen, hold on. Here it is. Okay, so this was January. Yeah, hold on a second. Hold on. Let me see if I can find it. 8 pages. The The appellant is, let me see if I can say what the judges decided. So finally turned to the points of pornography and indictment 76. Since there's 3 years. So they were appealing his sentence. So they concluded, so they declined the DPP lost. It says, in the end, the judge considered that he had to weigh the seriousness of the offenses, which he imposed adequately, reflect the grave seriousness of the offenses against the young girl and the little child. We think that he was right to come to that conclusion. And we think that any extent to which still higher sentences might well have been imposed in those cases does not cross the, what is that word? I can't make out that word. Of demonstrating, as the Crown has to do, that he is sentenced outside the range, which was legitimate to him, as in all the circumstances of the case. For those reasons, therefore, we decline to accept the Crown's submissions. However, we give the Crown permission to appeal, albeit the appeal is dismissed. So that was the Court of Appeal decision. So yeah, he did give him, like I said, it was like up to 18 years, but then he got like 1/3 shaved off. This is Patrick Moran. At least they tried, because most of the time the sentences are ridiculous and they're not even trying. But it's within the range. And what happens a lot of times is, it was 9 counts, but they're running all concurrent. So they're, you get sentenced 5 years for this, 5 years for that, but it's all running together, right? So it's not consecutive sentencing, it's concurrent sentencing. At that time, he had no previous convictions. And his social inquiry report, of course, he claims to be the victim. Had a miserable and unhealthy upbringing, mommy dearest. They go on to say, but nothing that happened to him could possibly justify the behavior demonstrated by him in this case. The report overall makes grim reading. It is apparent that he's addicted to pornography to a degree. The subjugation of women. He is rightly assessed as posing a high risk of reoffending. So how does someone who poses a high risk of reoffending become a category D low risk prisoner? Does the prison actually read these judgments? Because most of the time they don't know what happens in court. They just take a prisoner, drop him off, and then that's if he's in custody. This dude might not have even, he was arrested the day of the thing with the 5-year-old, but I mean, it really makes me wonder, to be quite frank, if the prison even does an assessment and an analysis of every single offender as they come in. So how do you go from having a high risk of reoffending, which means that you shouldn't be out there walking around talking to women in the public, to becoming a category D prisoner? Something is wrong. Marshall says, when it comes to sexual assaults, there shouldn't be any time taken off of the sentence. Well, they're going to claim that that's against their human rights, and they'll probably win. Ingrid says, please ask the government to send him to Picota jail in Bogota. Well, he has a high risk of reoffending. So when he's deported and sent back to Colombia, no doubt he'll reoffend again. And I hope he, I'm not hoping that he hurts any child, but based on his track record, he will. And this time, he probably things won't end well for him. Listen to what the court said. In mitigation, Miss Lee Halliday Davis, that was his attorney for this, said everything that could possibly be said in his behalf. She pointed out that he was still young, only 26. He's got a lot of years of offending ahead of him. That's how I read that. That he has no previous convictions, that he has a good work record. Well, he's working for his uncle. Like the uncle is going to say any differently. And seemed to behave himself to begin with when he came from Colombia, and that he pleaded guilty to the offenses alleged against him. Really? I accept all that she said, but in a case as serious as this, personal mitigation doesn't count for very much. That's what the court said. Yeah, because of course he claims that, he had a bad upbringing, he was molested and this and that, and blah, blah, blah. Oh, see me crying, not. Prison, get your act together. That's the overarching message for today. Please get it together. I'm sick and tired of having to hear about your shenanigans, having to report on your shenanigans. I'm just begging you, please, to get it together. Your actions are impacting the lives of people in a real way. You just had an inmate die in custody because y'all wouldn't call. And I'm not saying that he may or may not have died otherwise, but certainly you didn't call an ambulance for him. An outside person had to call 911 to get him an ambulance. This is the kind of slackness that we do not need. I suggest they hurry up and find themselves a good prison director instead of having one acting for years. And on top of that, I think that they need to reinitiate the rehabilitation program, because since they've had Miss Aduke Caesar on suspension, the entire program has been suspended. From what I understand, nobody's actually running that program. So even the prisoners who are in there who have a possibility of being rehabilitated aren't getting access to the courses and so on that they need, because she was the director of that program. Wow. Slackness to a different level. While we're addressing issues, can we get something sorted out at Kay's Foundation? Replace the board with more proactive individuals who actually care about our children and who are not going to be hoodwinked by the workers at the facility to believe every single thing that they say. Y'all need to start making unannounced visits where you just pop in all hours of the night and day and see what's really going on at that facility, and start talking to some of the young girls there and boys. How many more people are going to have to die because of prison slackness and Kay's Foundation slackness? I'll leave you guys with those thoughts for today. Happy Monday, folks. I'm sorry that we had to have such a heavy discussion on a Monday, but you know what it is. Tomorrow we can talk a bit about the shooting over the weekend. I understand the young man is still alive. He's hanging in there after being shot 3 times. That was some of what else happened this weekend. So tune back in tomorrow. We'll continue the conversation. You guys have a fabulous day, and please be safe.
Thank you for tuning in to another edition of The Cold Hard Truth. Make sure to check Facebook for showtimes and more information and the latest news at CaymanMarlRoad.com. Subscribe to our IG and Facebook pages to get the latest happenings.